Remember, oftentimes these emails will come with attachments, or they'll have links in there that take you to an attachment they want you to download. Never open an attachment, never click on those links inside. Oftentimes, those things will have what we call payloads, and they carry some pretty nasty stuff. Let's take a look at an example of one of those. This ransomware stuff is a dangerous new type of malware, but in a nutshell, essentially what it is, it's a extortion. So you can kind of read through what it's doing here, but they pop up this notification on your screen, and they tell you all this bad stuff that you have allegedly done, and it's very threatening language. But what's really happening behind the scenes before you ever see this is that you've clicked on something, you've downloaded something, and you run it. And usually after you run the program, you won't see anything happen, or you'll get an error message. What's really going on at this point in the background of your computer is that this software is now going through every document on your computer, looking for Word documents, looking for Excel spreadsheets, looking for PowerPoints, looking for PDFs. And it's doing what we call encryption, which is just a fancy term of saying it's encoding it into a completely different language. It's a computer language. And without a special key to translate it back into our language, you'll never have access to that information again. It'll look like gobbledygook if you try to open it up. A bunch of characters that don't make any sense. And so all that's happening in the background, it's doing it on all of your files that you would deem important. And it's not just doing them on your local computer. It's checking to see if you have a flash drive plugged in, and it's doing it on external storage. It's checking to see if you have any network shares, like your My Docs folders, or your departmental network shares to which you may have access. And it's reaching out to those too, and it's saying, do I have permissions to this? Great, I'll go ahead and start encrypting all that stuff too. I'll translate that to that gobbledygook. And only when it's done getting everything that it knows it has permissions to, will it finally pop up this notification and give you this threatening language. And some of it tries to kind of craft its message behind, we're a federal authority, we're somebody who's investigating you for criminal activity on your computer, and makes it sound like you're in trouble for something. And then they're going to target you in this particular one by having you go buy a Walmart gift card for the federal government. Guess what the IRS doesn't run on? Gift cards. Certainly not from 7-Eleven, Walgreens, or Kmart. They're trying to get your money for your data. So if you agree to buy these, if you get these gift cards and you send them one, they'll give you that special key that you need. You punch it in here and it unlocks or it retranslates back all of your files into English again. They do exactly what they say they're doing. They'll give you your data back. They're holding it hostage until you pay them money. Here's another example. When you run it initially, it runs as you. So everything that it can touch that you have permissions to, it will. If it can't do that. But just keep in mind that you all in this room, as I look around, you have permissions and access to a lot of different things that involve a lot of not just your department in some cases, but other departments as well.
Could it get into it?
In most cases, they're not. Because a lot of times these are coming from...
You can't follow the money?
Now, and here's what's fun about that is because you're translating into a gift card that usually most of the time will be redeemed overseas to countries that have different laws than we do, it works differently. And in this case, for example, I think this one that I've got up there on the screen now, if I remember correctly, this one doesn't ask you for a gift card. This one actually has you deposit your money and transfer it in something called Bitcoin, this cryptocurrency stuff that you may have heard of. And really, it's just a digital currency that is untraceable. That was the whole reason it was designed. And once they get it on their side, they'll either spend it like a gift card, because there are a lot of different websites that take Bitcoin as real payment, like US dollars, or there are even some exchanges that will exchange money almost like a Canadian or a Chinese yen or something to a US dollar. They'll exchange Bitcoin back into US dollars for these people. And at that point, it becomes untraceable. There's no way to figure out where that money went.
Even if you could trace it, they're most likely originating.
Absolutely. Now, I will say that in every instance I've seen, and this has hit healthcare facilities, it's hit other higher ed institutions. As recently as last month, I think one university in California paid $50,000 to get back data that was encrypted on a whole volume, a whole set of disks that was important to the university for business operations. So to them, it was worth it. A lot of mom and pop shops, smaller businesses get hit with this kind of stuff because they have employees and no security. And when this happens to them, they have two options. If I just encrypted all, or if I just translated all of your QuickBooks, all of your financial info into gobbledygook, your two options are go out of business or pay the ransom. And if this happens to you at home, my recommendation is wipe it and move on. Because, like I said, so far in every instance I've seen, they've given the data back. But you never know, when a program like that runs on your computer, what piece does it leave behind? You don't know if it does or doesn't. And then the other thing that, at least to me, affects me from a moral standpoint when I ask the question is, what did I just give my money to? What is my money about to go towards if I pay the ransom? Maybe they're buying pizza and beer with it back in the Eastern Bloc. I don't know. But I suspect there's probably other things that they're using that money for. The latest, I will tell you this, the latest and most ruthless version of this that I have seen, this is a new spin on this. They actually tell you in the instructions they pop up at the end that, hey, we'll give you a special download to the same thing you clicked on, and if you get 5 of your friends to click on it and infect their computers, we'll translate back your stuff for free. In other words, if you hold your friends hostage so they pay us, we'll give you your stuff back for free. It is a whole new level. But like what Matthew says, when they're getting smarter and they're becoming more devious in the attack methods, that's an example of the evolution of that sort of thing with regard to ransomware in particular. And that goes back into that social engineering tactic of urgency, right? If I tell you you're on a time limit now, you got to do this in a certain time, it makes you act differently than if you thought, well, I could always do it in a month, in a week, next year. So our email is the only type. So these are some other common phishing methods in addition to the email type. This smishing, if you've ever gotten a text message where a bank is alerting you to an unauthorized transaction and it has a link in there for you to click on, don't click on that. Your bank will usually never send you a text message like that. If you ever get a text message from an unknown sender or somebody claiming to be your bank, always do that long press hover over it. Or what I would do instead, if you're worried about your bank account, is just go to bankofamerica.com and log in there. If Wells Fargo has a message for you, it'll be in your little Wells Fargo inbox when you log in on the website. If you're ever in doubt, pull up a web browser, type it in yourself. Then you're not in danger of clicking on a link that may take you somewhere else. Phishing, this usually manifests as an urgent voicemail asking you to call back a number and dial an extension so that you can get an important message. And then the scammers will either put you on hold, and while you obliviously wait, they're charging you for the call, or they will connect you to somebody who attempts then to obtain your personal information under some false premise. Whaling is an interesting one. This is where the goal is to obtain data from users who have a high level of control over a company, who have info that can be sold. Did any of you hear about the iTunes celebrity attacks that happened about a year ago? They just recently sentenced this guy. He ultimately it was done by phishing attempts, but he got into the account of a bunch of high-profile Hollywood celebrities, and specifically their iTunes account, because on your iPhone, you see everything synced to the cloud now. So all their pictures they were taking on their iPhones were synced to their clouds. Well, guess what people in Hollywood like to take pictures of? Themselves, without clothes. Guess what could be sold for a lot of money online to the right people? Pictures of celebrities without clothes. And so this is what this guy was doing. He was phishing people. He was getting their credentials. He was getting their iTunes account, finding anything that looked incriminating or that he thought could be worth some money online, and then he was selling it. For companies, the most common time that this happens is actually this time of year, during tax season. They'll get scammers attempt to dupe executives into revealing personal details about employees under false premises of these urgent tax prep documents that you need to submit. And Matthew was telling me earlier the IRS has actually sent out a warning recently about some of these phishing attempts that are going on right now. They just get very prevalent to hit companies this time of year. And then this last one, spear phishing. This is something that may target a company with a fake website that's disguised as that company. So it may use the same color scheme, may have their logo on there. It's a very specific, very targeted attack, and that was what the self-phishing that we did was an example of, because if you click that link, it takes you to a login page that looks almost identical to our email's login page. And this is something that we know is happening out there. So what about in-person social engineering attacks? We've talked a lot about this anonymous or online. Let's paint a scenario that involves a physical visit from a social engineer. I think this is kind of a fun exercise. So as a bad guy, we're going to think like our thief again. We've got to identify some things. We want to identify a target, some background. So let's just make up and say, well, we're going to target the university's business office. And we find out some information about people who work in the university business office. Let's make up a totally random fictitious name. We'll say that we found out the name of the financial controller here at Latrobe University. And her name is Mickey Reilers. And we found out that Mickey is out on vacation. So now we need to come up with how our attack vectors. And that's a fancy word for just saying, how are we going to get in to the organization? How are we actually going to make our attack on the organization? Well, this requires, at this point, a couple of believable storylines. So let's say that I know that Vicky is out, but I come dressed kind of nicely as the attacker. I come to the office, the business office, and I claim to have an interview scheduled with Mickey. And I tell you my resume was ruined by spilled coffee, and maybe I even show you the coffee stain on my tie or on my skirt. And I'm trying to elicit a little empathy, and I ask if I can print another copy of my resume from your computer. Or maybe I say, or you can print it for me, and I hand you my flash drive. As people, we are naturally inclined to want to help somebody else. But in this case, that's the absolute wrong thing to do. Because by simply inserting the flash drive in there, all computers have the ability to automatically run programs as soon as you pop a flash drive into a computer. So as soon as you plug it in, without you having to do anything else, they could have executed something on your computer running as you. And that goes back to all those problems we just discussed. Or let's say you tell me, well, you know, Mickey's actually out of the office this week. You don't have an interview with Mickey. Oh, so dejected. I ask if I can use the bathroom now to wash the coffee off my tie. You take me to maybe to an employee bathroom, or you tell me where it's at. And either walking down the hallway, or once I reach the bathroom, I leave little breadcrumbs of flash drives. I drop a flash drive here, I put one here in the cabinet. And what do we do when we see an abandoned orphan flash drive laying somewhere? As an IT guy, I want to plug it in and find out if there's stuff on it, tells you who it is. Somebody lost their flash drive. I've got to plug it in and get it back to them. Once again, as soon as you plug it in, you have that particular problem of whatever running on that flash drive. So those are a couple of scenarios that are real-world scenarios. These are things that we've seen happen before, not necessarily here at Laterno, but at other institutions. Okay, so let's briefly look at one last technique that has become more common in recent months, and that's this guy. So everybody probably has some familiarity with the lovely blue screen of death, which is what this is designed to look like. Pops up on your computer, you think it's from Microsoft, but now it's got the addition of this one last piece of information that's new at the bottom. Hey, you're going to get this cool tech support if you call that number. Really what you'll get is probably someone in another country who tells you that your computer's infected, it's got a problem, and they need to dial into your computer and do some remote support with you. And they will walk you through a process that gives them access to do that. And then once they're in, they'll probably make things worse. And then they'll ask for your credit card information so they can clean it up for you, do a repair. If you ever see anything like this, look for any kind of X button in the top right. Use your Control-Delete, Escape, whatever you can to try to get out of this, or just restart the computer. Just hold the power button on the front, shut it down, let it come back up. When it comes back up, this message will usually be gone. All right, so let's play a quick game that I think is fun and will help us hopefully review the information from these last few slides. So this is from my alma mater. Texas A&M did this, and I thought this was a cool deal, so I wanted to share it with y'all. And it will show us some of the same stuff that we just got through talking about. So here's the game. And we don't have a football team here, so it's okay to pose as the Aggie football team for a little bit, I think. So here's our first game. It's A&M versus Auburn. We get a message on Facebook. What should we do? All right, here's the message. So now we have to decide what we're going to do. What do you think? As long as you were there, click the link to see the pictures. Do we copy and paste that link into the browser? Do we go to that person's Facebook page to make sure that we really know that person? Kevin, what are you thinking? You go for 2? Copy and paste the photo link into the browser? Is that right? Let's try it. Uh-oh. We're already headed to overtime. One play and you got us in overtime, Kevin. So here's another example. People on social media attempting to social engineer you. So let's do this one. There's a whole bunch of the games on there. Let's answer this question because I think this was interesting, and then we'll jump back into the PowerPoint. So on this particular question, which of the following questions is not safe to answer in an online poll? Okay, that's one reason why that's probably the right answer. There's another reason too. You ever, whenever you, certain websites you sign up for, banks do this especially, and they have you answer security questions, those secret questions. And a lot of times, what is one of those security questions? Exactly. The first street you grew up on, something like that. Anytime you see that on an online survey, be very wary, because that's a cool trick to try to get you to answer those secret questions that if they have other information about you already, then it's much easier for them to gain access to your information. So we'll say, what is your pet's name, and submit. We'll see what they say. All right, so we're celebrating. We did well that time. Exactly right. Account security questions, information. All right, so you say, well, I don't fall for that kind of stuff, or now I know and I won't fall for that stuff in the future. Bad guys can't get me now, right?